On November 23, 2022, at precisely 12:16 p.m., Detective Captain James Sloan's phone rang. The call came from IU Health Hospital in Bedford, Indiana. His stomach tightened when he heard it involved a child. Within minutes, he was in his vehicle, sirens blaring, racing toward what would become one of the most disturbing cases of his 17-year career. The winter air felt colder that day, as if nature itself sensed the darkness that had befallen little Elana Plummer. First glimpse of horror. At the hospital, DCS caseworker Emily Werner waited, her face ashen. "You need to see this," she whispered, showing Detective Sloan photos on her phone. The images showed a 20-month-old girl, Ellie Plummer, with severe facial bruising, a grotesquely swollen forehead, and vacant eyes. Medical staff had already determined she had a brain bleed and broken collarbone. "She's being airlifted to Riley Children's Hospital," Emily explained. "The doctors don't think it's an accident." Sloan nodded grimly. After 2 decades investigating crimes, he knew intentional abuse when he saw it. The first warning signs. 6 days earlier, on November 17th, an anonymous caller contacted the Department of Child Services. The caller reported smelling marijuana and a chemical odor, likely methamphetamine, coming from the apartment where Ellie lived with her mother, Cheyenne Hill. More concerning, they mentioned seeing light bruising on the toddler's face. When questioned that day, Cheyenne dismissed the bruises, claiming Ellie had fallen from her bed. DCS noted the concern, but didn't remove the child. It was a decision that would haunt everyone involved. A mother's disturbing behavior. Cheyenne Hill, 22, had a troubled history. Former friends described her as unpredictable, with violent mood swings. She'd moved to Bedford, Indiana, just 8 months earlier, leaving behind a trail of concerning behavior in her previous town. Court records would later reveal she had prior drug charges in 3 counties. Neighbors reported hearing her scream at Ellie frequently, calling her stupid and worthless. One neighbor recalled Cheyenne saying, "Sometimes I look at her and just want to hurt her." Red flags were everywhere, but no one connected the dots soon enough. The day before tragedy. On November 22nd, the day before Ellie was hospitalized, her babysitter Michelle Barrow noticed the swelling on the child's forehead had worsened significantly. "She needs a doctor," Michelle insisted. Cheyenne shrugged it off. "She's fine. Kids get bumps." That evening, Michelle texted a friend. "I'm worried about Ellie. Something isn't right." She considered calling authorities but feared losing her friendship with Cheyenne. It was a decision she would forever regret, telling investigators later, "I keep thinking about what would have happened if I'd just picked up the phone." The critical morning. Cheyenne's version of events on November 23rd changed multiple times during interviews. Her most consistent story was that Ellie woke up at 3:40 a.m., whining and fussy. Cheyenne claimed she noticed swelling on Ellie's forehead, but didn't think it was serious. As morning progressed, Ellie grew increasingly lethargic. Her skin turned pale, her breathing shallow. Instead of calling 911, Cheyenne tried pouring water on her daughter's face to wake her up. By 9 a.m., Ellie was barely responsive, her hands and feet twitching, clear signs of neurological distress. The unthinkable decision. Despite her daughter's dire condition, Cheyenne made a decision that shocked investigators. She left for work at 9:30 a.m. Before leaving, she smoked marijuana to calm her nerves. She left Ellie with her boyfriend's mother, telling her that Ellie was just tired. When questioned later about this decision, Cheyenne stated coldly, "I have to provide for my child." Her time card from the local factory where she worked showed she clocked in at 9:47 a.m., while her daughter was dying miles away. The boyfriend story. Cameron Fleming, Cheyenne's boyfriend of 3 months, was interviewed separately by police. He claimed he'd noticed Ellie's forehead swelling days earlier and had even made a disturbing joke about it, saying she looked like a Klingon from Star Trek because of the protruding ridge on her forehead. When pressed about why he didn't seek medical attention, he shrugged. "It wasn't my place," Cheyenne said. She was handling it. Cell phone records would later show he texted Cheyenne that morning, "The kid looks really bad. Maybe call someone?" Cheyenne never responded, finally getting help. It wasn't until 11:23 a.m., nearly 8 hours after Ellie first showed symptoms, that someone finally called 911. Cameron's mother, alarmed by Ellie's condition, made the call despite Cheyenne's earlier instructions not to involve authorities. Paramedics arrived within minutes and immediately recognized the severity of Ellie's condition. One EMT later testified that Ellie was the most injured child I've ever seen still breathing. They radioed ahead for priority treatment and rushed her to the nearest hospital. Medical examination reveals more. At IU Health Hospital, Dr. Melissa Kendrick performed the initial examination of Ellie. Beyond the obvious head trauma, she discovered bruising in various stages of healing across Ellie's torso, legs, and arms. X-rays revealed not just the broken collarbone but also 3 partially healed rib fractures that were weeks old. Most disturbing was Ellie's weight, just 18 pounds, well below the normal range for her age. This isn't a one-time injury, Dr. Kendrick told Detective Sloan. This child has been suffering for months. The digital trail of abuse. When investigators seized Cheyenne's phone, they discovered months of disturbing text messages. On October 7th, she had written to Cameron, "Ellie was fucking terrible last night. I wanted to throw her against the wall." On October 13th, "This kid is driving me insane. One day I'm going to snap." And perhaps most chillingly on November 1st. "Sometimes I look at her and think she's going to grow up to be the next Jeffrey Dahmer. There's something wrong with her eyes." The texts painted a picture of a mother who saw her child not as a blessing but as a burden, even a monster. The feeding ritual. Interviews with visitors to Cheyenne's apartment revealed a disturbing pattern regarding how Ellie was fed. Multiple witnesses described Cheyenne dumping food directly onto the floor and telling Ellie to eat like the animal you are. She called this practice free roaming, as if her daughter were a pet rather than a child. One witness recounted seeing Ellie desperately picking up crumbs from a dirty floor, while Cheyenne scrolled through her phone, ignoring her hungry child. The refrigerator in their apartment, when examined by police, contained beer and condiments, but almost no proper food for a toddler. Coworkers come forward. After Ellie's hospitalization made local news, Cheyenne's co-workers at the factory came forward with disturbing accounts. One recalled Cheyenne showing up to work laughing while saying, "My baby won't wake up today." Another remembered Cheyenne complaining that Ellie was the ugliest baby she'd ever seen. Supervisor Janet Meadows reported that Cheyenne often called in sick to work, but would post on social media about partying on those same days. She seemed to resent being a mother, Janet told investigators. She talked about Ellie like she was an inconvenience, not a child. The babysitter's testimony. Michelle Barrow had babysat Ellie regularly for 3 months. Her testimony provided crucial timeline information about Ellie's declining condition. On November 15th, she first noticed a small bump on Ellie's forehead. By the 19th, the bump had grown. By the 22nd, the day before hospitalization, Ellie's entire forehead was swollen and she was unusually quiet. Michelle begged Cheyenne to take her to a doctor. "She needs help," Michelle insisted. Cheyenne's response was chilling. "Mind your own business. That's my child." Michelle showed police text messages documenting her concerns, evidence that would prove crucial in the case. Neighbor testimonies. Apartment neighbors provided additional pieces to the tragic puzzle. Downstairs, neighbor Robert Johnson recalled hearing thumping noises and a child crying, followed by Cheyenne screaming, "Shut up," nearly every night. Another neighbor, Melissa Cheng, had noticed Ellie's black eyes and patchy hair loss weeks earlier. "I thought maybe she had some medical condition," Melissa admitted, tears in her eyes. "I never imagined someone was hurting her." The most disturbing account came from neighbor Taylor Wilson, who overheard Cheyenne telling someone on the phone, "One day she's going to kill someone, she's not right in the head." She was talking about her 20-month-old daughter. The drug connection. A search of Cheyenne's apartment revealed the extent of her drug use. Hidden in an air vent, police found a small bag of methamphetamine, multiple pipes, and prescription pills not in her name. Hair follicle testing would later confirm that Ellie had methamphetamine in her system, suggesting long-term exposure to the drug. Neighbors confirmed a constant stream of strange visitors at odd hours, typical of drug-dealing activity. One neighbor recalled Cheyenne saying, "The baby sleeps through anything, she doesn't know what's happening anyway." The environment was not just neglectful, it was actively dangerous. The hospital vigil. For 3 days, Ellie fought for her life at Riley Children's Hospital in Indianapolis. Medical staff worked tirelessly, but the brain damage was too severe. Nurses noted that no one visited Ellie except for officials and caseworkers. Cheyenne called once asking not about her daughter's condition, but whether police were at the hospital. A teddy bear sat untouched on Ellie's hospital bed, brought by a nurse who couldn't bear to see the child alone. On November 26th at 4:35 p.m., Ellie Plummer was declared dead. She was 20 months old. She would never see her second birthday. The medical examiner's findings. Dr. James Carson performed the autopsy on November 28th. His findings were devastating. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, with multiple impact points suggesting repeated blows. Ellie's broken collarbone showed healing stages indicating it had been broken approximately 2 weeks before her death. Most telling was her weight. At 18 pounds, she was in the bottom 5% for her age, showing signs of malnutrition. This was not a single incident, Dr. Carson concluded. This child suffered ongoing abuse and neglect over a period of months. The manner of death was officially ruled a homicide. Cheyenne's interrogation. Detective Sloan interrogated Cheyenne Hill for 7 hours on November 27th. The interview tape shows a woman more concerned with her phone privileges than her daughter's death. Cheyenne offered multiple contradictory explanations. Ellie fell off the bed, hit herself on furniture, had a hidden medical condition, or maybe had a brain tumor. When confronted with the autopsy results, Cheyenne shrugged and said, "Doctors make mistakes." Most chilling was her response when asked about calling her daughter the next Jeffrey Dahmer. She laughed and said, "Well, she was an a-hole sometimes." Not once during the interview did she cry or express genuine remorse. The failed polygraph. On December 2nd, Cheyenne agreed to a polygraph examination. The results were unequivocal. She was being deceptive when asked if she had physically harmed Ellie or knew who did. In the post-test interview, Cheyenne claimed, "I failed because I failed Ellie as a mother," but she continued to deny any direct harm to her daughter. When pressed about why she didn't take Ellie to the hospital sooner, her answer was coldly practical. "I had to work. I would have lost my job." For Cheyenne, keeping her job apparently took priority over her daughter's life. A history of violence. As the investigation deepened, Cheyenne's past came into focus. School records showed she had been suspended multiple times for fighting. An ex-boyfriend came forward with photographs of bruises he claimed Cheyenne had inflicted. Her own mother, interviewed in another state, described Cheyenne as having anger issues since childhood. Most telling was a juvenile record that had been sealed. Cheyenne had been arrested at 16 for animal cruelty after strangling a neighbor's cat. The pattern of violence extended far beyond what happened to Ellie, the system's failure. A review of DCS records revealed the November 17th call wasn't the first concerning Ellie. In August, someone had reported seeing Cheyenne slap the infant in a grocery store parking lot. A caseworker visited but found no signs of physical abuse at that time. In September, another report came from a pediatrician concerned about Ellie's weight loss, but Cheyenne had explained it away as a stomach bug. Each report, taken individually, hadn't risen to the level requiring removal. Together, they painted a picture of escalating danger that the system failed to recognize in time. Charges filed. On May 31, 2023, after months of investigation, the Lawrence County prosecutor officially charged Cheyenne Hill with felony neglect of a dependent resulting in death, a level 1 felony carrying up to 40 years in prison. Additional charges included aggravated battery, maintaining a common nuisance for the drug activity, and reckless homicide. Despite the severity of the charges, Cheyenne was not immediately located. She had fled the state shortly after her initial interview, violating the terms of her release, the arrest. For 3.5 months, Cheyenne Hill evaded authorities. On September 16, 2023, her luck ran out in an unexpected way. She was caught stealing firewood from a state park in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. When local police ran her ID, the outstanding Indiana warrants appeared. She was arrested without incident and extradited back to Indiana on September 21st. During transport, she reportedly asked officers if that whole baby thing was still going on. The casual callousness shocked even veteran officers. The legacy of a lost child. Today, Cheyenne Hill awaits trial in the Lawrence County Jail. Cameron Fleming faces lesser charges of neglect for failing to report the abuse. Ellie's grave in a small Bedford cemetery is marked by a simple stone with a teddy bear etched into it, paid for by hospital staff who treated her. The true tragedy of Elana, Ellie Plummer's short life lies not just in how it ended, but in how many opportunities were missed to save her. One phone call, one decisive action by any of the adults who suspected something was wrong, could have changed everything. As Detective Sloan told reporters, "If you see something, say something. Don't hesitate. A child's life may depend on it." For Ellie, that call came too late. I want you to express your opinion too if you were what you would have done.